Have you ever just gone through your day feeling like you are in absolute 100% control of your decisions? Like every choice, every thought, every little reaction is entirely yours? Well, the fascinating and maybe slightly terrifying truth is that while we really feel like we're in the driver's seat, our brains are actually running on some seriously ancient hidden software. It's like this invisible architect, quietly pulling the strings and dictating our reality in ways we barely even notice. So, in this explainer today, we are going to expose those hidden mechanics.
Okay, let's dive into this. We've mapped out a structured journey to make sense of all the chaos inside our heads. We're going to cover the flawed machine, the social animal, hidden everyday influences, the productivity paradox, and finally, wrap it up with rewiring your mind.
Section 1. The flawed machine. Let's talk about why your internal world is basically built on illusions.
It turns out your mind is a restless storm. We have roughly 60,000 thoughts a day, and honestly, most of them are just repetitive loops playing over and over. And our memories? They are definitely not perfect video recordings. They rely heavily on emotion. See, the brain's emotional alarm system, the amygdala, prioritizes intense feelings. Think about it from an evolutionary standpoint. Remembering a serious danger or intense joy literally meant survival. That is exactly why you can vividly recall a massive triumph or the absolute sting of a deep heartbreak, while the mundane details of, say, what you had for lunch on Tuesday, that vanishes completely.
And this brilliantly illustrates one of the brain's most fascinating flaws. I mean, have you ever watched someone speak with just absolute unearned confidence about a topic they clearly know nothing about? We probably all have. Well, that is the dunning-kruger effect in action. Their poor self-awareness basically means they are blissfully unaware of their own ignorance, which leads them to massively overestimate their actual capabilities. It's wild.
But our flawed machine doesn't just mess with our intelligence, it actually messes with our vision, too. Ever wonder why you spot faces in random clouds or the knots of a wooden door? It's a phenomenon called pareidolia. Our brains have this highly specialized region called the fusiform face area. For our ancient ancestors, spotting a predator or an ally hiding in the brush was quite literally a matter of life and death, so today our brains overcompensate. We prioritize survival over actual reality, basically conjuring up faces where none exist just to be on the safe side.
Moving on to Section 2, the social animal. Here, we're looking at how this flawed internal mind of ours projects outward, desperately seeking belonging and safety in the social world.
Now, if you are someone who constantly worries about what others think of you, let me relieve some of that anxiety for you right now. This is the spotlight effect. We consistently, almost universally, overestimate how much space we occupy in the minds of others. We walk into a room and think everyone is staring at our mistakes or judging us. In reality, people barely notice. Everyone is far too consumed with their own internal dialogue to focus on your minor missteps.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that the brain actually processes social rejection and physical injury in the exact same way. I know, it sounds crazy, but it's true. Both a broken bone and being excluded from a group trigger the same area in the brain, the anterior cingulate cortex. For our ancestors, being rejected from the tribe meant isolation, which pretty much meant death. So today, being ghosted or left out literally causes physical pain because your ancient wiring treats social rejection as a fatal threat.
And because we desperately need that social connection to survive, we've developed what's called the chameleon effect. Without even realizing it, special brain cells called mirror neurons cause us to bend our speech, our posture, and sometimes even our accents to match the people we're talking to. It acts like this invisible, unconscious handshake to build trust. It's basically our brain's way of signaling to the other person, hey, I'm just like you, and you are totally safe with me.
All right, Section 3, Hidden Everyday Influences. We are going to pivot away from the social world for a second to look at the subtle, external triggers in our environment. These are the invisible puppet strings that secretly override our logic and dictate our everyday choices.
For instance, did you know the language you think in drastically changes the choices you make? It's true. When you make a decision in your native language, it's heavily tied to intuition and emotion. But if you think through that exact same problem in a foreign language, it actually forces you to suppress your native inhibition centers. It strips away all that emotional bias, resulting in a highly rational, systematic decision.
Here is another completely bizarre hidden influence: temperature. If you hand someone a warm cup of coffee during a meeting, they will subconsciously judge you as more generous and caring. Why? Because the comfort of physical heat is deeply tied to primal feelings of safety from infancy. It subtly nudges our brain to trust strangers.
Seriously, this is a powerful, invisible tool you can absolutely use in your next negotiation or job interview.
Let's jump to Section 4, the productivity paradox. We're going to explore how our ancient brains completely misinterpret the demands of modern productivity, which often makes us our own worst enemies at work. 15 points. That right there represents a temporary drop in your IQ. And why does it happen? Multitasking. We love to think that juggling emails, texts, and projects makes us super productive, but it's a dangerous illusion. Every single time you switch tasks, your brain experiences a lag that drains massive amounts of energy. This fractured focus lowers your cognitive ability just as much as staying awake all night long.
So if multitasking doesn't work, what about financial rewards? Does money actually motivate us to work harder? Surprisingly, no. This is known as the work paradox. Studies consistently show this bizarre truth, that people often work much harder and perform significantly better on projects when they are paid less, or even when they aren't paid at all. It turns out that pure passion and intrinsic drive easily overpower a simple paycheck.
Furthermore, we constantly try to force our brains to work in these grueling marathons, but they are biologically wired to work in short bursts. Deep, undivided focus naturally frays right around the 20-minute mark. At that point, neurofatigue sets in, and the brain starts desperately searching for distractions. By capping your deep focus sprints at 20 minutes, you are aligning perfectly with your ancient wiring. This prevents burnout and keeps your mind razor-sharp. And that brings us to Section 5, rewiring your mind. Now that we finally understand the invisible architect, it's time for an empowering conclusion. Let's look at a few actionable psychological hacks to actually take back control.
So, the crucial point is overcoming our own bias. You probably noticed that you give fantastic advice to your friends, but then you make terrible decisions in your own life, right? Well, that is Solomon's paradox. To hack this, you need to practice self-distancing. When you're faced with a tough dilemma, step back and analyze your own life from a third-person perspective. This simple shift bypasses your emotional biases and unlocks your natural, rational reasoning.
Next up, if you really want to achieve something, physically write it down. The simple act of putting pen to paper shifts a goal from a passing, foggy wish to a tangible contract. But more importantly, it triggers your brain's reticular activating system. Think of this as a filter. It suddenly forces your brain to scan your environment for the exact opportunities and decisions you need to make that written goal a reality.
Let's move to and see how this builds. We have 3 final, completely counterintuitive tools you can use every single day. First, doodle during long meetings. Seriously, it occupies just enough mental bandwidth to keep you anchored to the present moment, which dramatically improves your memory retention. Second, embrace strict deadlines. The ticking clock triggers adrenaline and the deadline effect, shifting you straight from procrastination to laser focus. And finally, if you're stressed out, force a fake smile. Thanks to the facial feedback hypothesis, your brain actually can't tell the difference, and it will release a real flood of dopamine and endorphins anyway.
Throughout this explainer, we've pulled back the curtain on the hidden software governing your choices, your fears, and your successes. By understanding these ancient mechanisms, you really no longer have to be a passenger. But it does leave us with one final, fascinating question to ponder as you step back out into the world today. Who is really in control of your life? You or your ancient wiring?